also probably touch on other things he didn't touch on yesterday. We still have time. I might touch on the aspect of art, sports, and cultural development. Otherwise, we just leave it at that. So let's hear from you, since we promised to answer your questions. And yesterday, somehow we were not able to do that because of the, need to strategically change the configuration of our use of time. So we strategically allowed him to finish what he needed to deal with, especially the highlights. And I believe you were blessed, and quite a number of you were stirred up to see how you could bring about transformation in your nation. So let me allow you now to go ahead and ask the questions that were burning in your hearts, in your minds, etc. There could be questions before or the questions from yesterday. As for the one that had to do with clean energy, you've already seen that he has sent 2 documents that should be addressing that. I believe everyone has seen that.
Yes, sir.
All right. So now let's hear from you. You have an opportunity, you better utilize it, or we'll go ahead and after now, there is nothing like you're asking, or I had this question, but I couldn't ask it that day. Yes, Lucille, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I have a question and a suggestion. My question goes to Brother Seth. He said that the dam, if they manage to develop a dam on, to build a dam on that Inga River or in Congo, it will serve.
River Congo, but it's called Inga project. So Inga 1, Inga 2, Inga 3.
Okay, so because I understand too that it will serve 15 million people. So I am wondering, why should other nation be interested in its development? Because Congo alone can consume that.
No, the 15.4, if my memory serves me well, was for the dam in China. But you go ahead so that he can answer your question.
Okay, maybe I got it then wrong. Because we have always said that the Congo River Dam can cover the whole continent. And I'll check again. My suggestion now is, and he said yesterday that Logos-Rhema is an NGO. Maybe I misunderstood also. And my suggestion would be, even if it is not the case, why not you as the leader we use the Logos-Rhema, and people who can come on board to be as the center of the think tank. Then people who are able in one way or another can be part of it and contribute, and then under your guidance, the Lord will see how to use us. That is my suggestion. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for the question and the suggestion. I will take the question, and then I will take the suggestion. So when I spoke about the Inga project, yes, you heard a number, but it's not in population. I was talking about households.
Okay.
So the Three Gorges Dam in China serves which is about how what INGA project is, serves 5.4 million households.
Mm-hmm.
In Africa, the average household size is, I think, 4.5. That's the average
Okay.
household size. So if you want population, you need to now multiply the value of about close to 11 million by 4.5 to get the number of people that it can actually serve. And these are just estimates. You see, yesterday I used some words that are key. And well, most people will disregard it, but to me or to some of us, it's very key. It's a potential. Till you turn the potential to kinetic or to something that can move, you will then know the real value. Now, we are just talking about electricity for the Inga Dam. We are not even talking about irrigation for farms. I intentionally kept quiet on it because we're dealing with energy. We've not even touched on farming. And I'm talking about aquaculture here. I'm talking about farming in general over here. We call them the spin-off effects that you get from projects like INGA. We've not even tapped into how much of this energy is industry going to use, because usually when you are planning economy, and this is one of Daddy's biggest areas, you are planning economy, you are not looking at households because households don't bring income. You are looking at the industry, because once industry is able to get cheap energy, what they are able to do is they are going to employ more, and those people will now be the breadwinners who are now going to spend into the economy. So we are not, the household value was just to give you a picture of how grand that project can be and how essential that project can be. How many households can that project serve? So that is just one element. And since we're talking about energy, I intentionally didn't talk about the spin-off effect of some of these things. Now, before I forget, because yesterday I was just trying to give some very high-level highlights just to get you going. There is, and I keep searching for it, I can't find it. But I found it at a point in time. World Bank did a research, and they have very big research unit. They did a research that shows that when you put a plant like solar in the economy, the multiplication factor, that's the extra benefit that you get on the economy, is somehow less than 1. So you get less than 1 time. So technically, let's say you get about 100%. Now, when you put something like coal, hydro, nuclear into the economy, what you are getting more than 10 times. So the multiplication factor is more than 10 times. It's been some time, about 5 years, I saw that document. I said, okay, I'll read it and then later, but I can't find that document online again. I keep searching for it. I'm praying to God I'll find it. And this is coming from World Bank. Unfortunately, they are not sharing this information with the countries that they are, in quotes, supposed to help. And maybe it's something that we need to get into. Into your suggestion, yes, it's something that we need to do. We need to start. And maybe it needs to start from me and maybe a few people, because I have a brother who is currently in Ghana, Shekwenya, who can also support this. We started some few things in terms of, again, this energy. I don't want to go so much, but again, maybe it's something that we can also look at into Daddy gave us an assignment on micro, how do we call it? Microgreens, which packs a dense energy for the body. We started some work over there, but again we slowed down because of other maybe personal things and all those things in terms of work and work related and those things. But maybe right now where we are as an ecclesia, I think that's one way to go, to look at having maybe a few people, like-minded people, and start putting out the various articles, the various research that we do out there, just to give the people or the world leaders or decision makers the understanding that there's capacity sitting here that can be tapped into. So maybe not a long article like what I sent you, but maybe what we call policy briefs or white papers, 1-2 pages maximum, on what our thinking is. And I'm praying to God that within the first or second quarter of this year, we will have to present something to Daddy in terms of our first policy brief. And we need to find a way to push it out in terms of energy. Maybe that's where we need to start from, because my brother in Ghana is also an engineer. And these are some of the things that we need to just start. And I'm praying to God that by God's grace, these things will now be established within Logos-Rhema itself, and then we can then propel it even in other countries. So thank you very much for the suggestion. It's something that we need to work on. It's something that we need to dedicate time to. And I'm praying to God that He will give us the strength to actually do it. But your first question, I hope that is answered. It's not the number of people, or it's not the population, but it's rather households. And in Africa, the average household is about 4.5 people in a house. I'm not saying there's a half person, but averagely, that's how we calculate it. Thank you very much for the question.
Before you actually leave that, if you talk in terms of 42,000 megawatts, which is what Inga 3 is supposed to produce eventually at the end of the project, can you put it in perspective for the ordinary person?
Okay. So, how do I even explain?
You said yesterday, for example, for Ghana is, how many? 5,000,
it's
right?
about 5,000, yes.
Nigeria, 10,000.
Yes.
So if you're talking of 42,000 megawatts, that's at least 4 times whatever Nigeria has.
Yes.
Now, if you were talking of industry being the main consumer, what percentage of that do you think Congo Democratic Republic needs? What's the current output for Congo Democratic Republic? Because those would help put things in perspective before we go into all the other aspects.
Okay, sir. I'm just trying to do a quick search on DRC. Now, so I mean, let me start from where Daddy started. So you will see 44,000 megawatt as being, let's say, being low in terms of just Inga 3. Okay. But when you look at Ghana, our peak capacity, even though we have 5,000 megawatts, our peak capacity is around, I think now we have hit 4,200. That's how much we have. So when, let's say, everybody, the 82% of the people who have electricity, everybody is using electricity at a go, we are around 4,200 megawatts. That's how much we are consuming. Now, when you look at that, then you can have a good idea. So Inga 3 is about 10 times what Ghana is using. And I'm combining household, industry, and everybody in this. 4,200. That's what we are actually consuming within the country of Ghana. Inga 3 is 10 times that. When you look at the data, industry consumes, I think, around 30 or so percent. I'm not too sure about the value, but around 30% or so, that figure. The rest is going to household and services. Okay. So again, let me go back and then show you with one thing, because currently, and this is 2022 data, the total installed capacity in DRC is 2,980 megawatts. I repeat, 2,980 megawatts. That's how much you have installed within DRC. Okay, so if you have, let's say, 44,000 megawatts on Inga 3 alone, just have that imagination. What's that 44,000? Now that is about 20 times, close to 20 times what DRC has right now. And with all the mining and with everything that Congo has, that up till now, they are still being plundered. And there are, how do we call it, special airstrips that are made for some specific airplanes that fly at night, because they need to carry those resources out of the country as quickly as possible. There are forests that people are not allowed to even enter.
No African, it's not just people.
No
No
African.
African is allowed, especially in the Goma area, Eastern Congo. Okay.
So if the energy is being channeled into industry, that industry alone, for the people, before that the people can now take the final product out, I mean, that will be a life-changing experience, not just for DRC. Let me just use this as an example. Currently, you have people now being deported back to Africa because they don't have the capacity to expand. They leave, and then they go to places that they have the capacity to do. That capacity or that potential is what they are just trying to explore. Now, if you have that potential within the continent, trust me, you will have people now coming from Europe, coming from the Americas, just trying to make life on this continent. That's why I keep saying the continent is endowed. But we need to now build that endowment and then make people who are outside the continent, but these are also God's people, now benefit from this endowment. So in terms of megawatt, this is how I will explain it. Daddy explained it. I just use another example just to give you an idea of how we look at things. And currently, I just did a search quickly on DRC installed capacity 2,980.
Okay, before you leave that, China, what is the capacity for the one that is supplying 5.4 million people?
Okay, sir, let me do a quick one on China.
I was even just talking about that particular dam, because if you're talking about the whole DRC,
the 3 budgets,
is actually 100,000 megawatts that is supposed to be when they finally are able to do everything concerning the Congo River alone, before the oil and gas and the nuclear and all the others, biothermal that you talked about yesterday. Because the average person is only thinking in terms of what you're saying at that particular point in time, as against, oh, wow. So if we're talking about all these sources of energy, that means it's possible that if all were to be, explored and exploited, I prefer explored, then we're going to end up with more than enough energy to export to other continents, not just Africa. But because it appears that it was just one area somebody was looking at, then there is the possibility we'll end up with that. Because, by the way, Congo is the second largest river in the world, the first one being River Nile. So we have two. But don't let me go far and wide. Let me stop there. As we go to the issue of Amazon and all those others that people need more often than not keep highlighting. Because if you don't know who you are, people will convince you are who they want you to be.
Yeah.
So it's important for us to get that. Then secondly, if you are not at the table discussing what should happen, you will end up being on the table as part of the menu. Thirdly, if you end up not doing what you're supposed to do as given by God, God might take and give to somebody who is using it. Remember the parable of the talents. I think I've said enough for now. Let me hear, Seth finish, and then Hannah Mijoya had raised her hand, and I see Veronica Matlusi has also raised her hand, and then we can go on from there. So, Prof. Deborah, finish what you're saying pertaining to China and all those, because the multiplier effect that you try to refer to, that I had talked about, in economics, multiplier effect, for example, if it's even 5, it means if you were producing a GDP of, say, $60 billion, which is just a little higher than what Ghana has. Then the multiplier effect being 5 as a result of enough energy being, given to give the backbone to everything, including AI, which people have been making a lot of noise about, but they don't talk about energy because this is what started this whole discussion. If you were to do just the 5 multiplier effect, 5-time multiplier, you're talking of $300 billion economy. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So the average person is not thinking in that direction. Now, in the case of Africa, you're talking about a 1 trillion or 1.2 trillion. Now, you do the multiplier effect. If we did the work we're supposed to do, it would be even 10 times, but let's take the 5. Then you're talking of 5-point-something trillion. Currently, I mean, the world economy is 9-point-something trillion, isn't it? About 10, maybe trillion. Somebody can check that for me. I haven't checked lately. I think I only checked at the end of 2023 or mid-2024. So it could be much higher now. I don't know. Somebody can check and confirm to us, either by indicating by show of hand or type it in the chat window. But let's have Prof. Deborah quickly finish, and then we can have both Hannah and Veronica. Thank you.
Okay, so you asked a question about the 3 gorges. The 3 gorges installed capacity 22,500 megawatts. 22,500 megawatts. That's the total energy for the 3 gorges dam. In terms of the world economy, it's now around $115 trillion.
Okay, so
yes.
That's much higher. That's good.
Yes.
Now, in terms of the 3 gorges, you're talking of about 5 times of that from, the Congo River alone in terms of capacity.
Yes.
Before you add all the others, in terms of oil and gas, in terms of biomass, in terms of, even nuclear, because the nuclear capabilities of Congo, doesn't Congo have uranium?
They have.
That's precisely my point. So, Sister Lucille, when you hear some of these things, and I'm glad you asked the question, honestly, because then it helps everybody to begin to think a little differently. That, hey, we're not just talking about one area, all the possible areas, because as you heard, if it is just talking in terms of, something like the thing they're trying to push upon you, force down your throat about, clean energy in terms of, it has to be solar power, green energy. Meanwhile, that's not the only source of even green energy, but meanwhile, they are, constructing even bigger coal, power generating stations and all that. Well, I think I want to stop here since I'm not really teaching or talking much. I'm just trying to see how best I can facilitate what is going on with Prof. Deborah, who is, by the mercies of God, one of the experts on energy. That's why he's a consultant in Vienna at the Atomic Energy, the International Atomic Energy Agency there in Austria. So anyway, let's now go far and wide, Sister Hannah, and then we'll go to Sister Veronica, and then we'll move on.
Shalom, sir. Thank you.
Yes,
I put my hand down because what I wanted to raise through your comments it's been covered because I was privileged to sit on a board of the energy company, and I think these lies that we are presented with and all these things, I'm able to relate with them. And yesterday I really felt a lot of pain in my heart. And so I want to just I'll just say I believe there's something that needs to be done, just like Sister Lucille said, because there is a lot of deception that has gone on. I was privileged to find myself in the middle of those discussions, and if you don't have all that information, there's a lot of deception that is going on, and at the end of the day, the average person, most people are suffering because of this, linked to the whole issue of the clean energy and all that. So I think all I can say is I'll really be very happy to have these matters move forward, because we can't continue in the deception that we've been deceived in. So I want to appreciate so much the presentation. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. I think the key point here is strategic positioning. So pray for others. Pray the Lord of the harvest to send the laborers, the perfect laborers, into the perfect harvest fields. Just like I said, without your brother probably going to where God sent him for strategic positioning, South Africa would have continued with their coal, power station decommissioned, but is being recommissioned. And you have the aspect of the second nuclear power station that was meant for power, generation, as against the one just for medical application that was not decommissioned. This one will be recommissioned, God helping, if they haven't already recommissioned, because I haven't checked. With that said, I'm just saying we should pray not only for Logos-Rhema Foundation for Leadership Resource Development, but for strategic positioning for every kingdom citizen, and particularly cabinet members of the government of God in the kingdom. So I think that's what I'll say to your contribution. Thank you very much, because if you are not there in that strategic position, you might not have known what is going on. So thank you for sharing. Sister Veronica?
Sir,
Yeah.
before Sister
Okay.
Veronica,
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Sister Hannah, do you have a place called Kayelekera in Malawi?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Do you know you have a union mine there?
Yes.
Do you know who mines the uranium and where the uranium goes? And who owns the mine?
It's
I
obviously
think,
it's not Malawi.
yeah,
And it's not just the only it's not the only mine where we've been shortchanged. There are a few places where, yeah.
yeah. I just want to bring to your attention because
Mm.
it's owned by a company called Paladin.
Mm.
You may have to read a bit on them. They are
Mm.
a world, how do I call it, mining company. And people keep asking. My wife is with another section of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and she was telling me, "Oh, so this is why the safeguards." And Daddy, when we talk about safeguards, Daddy knows very well about safeguards. This is why safeguards keep going there on it because Malawi don't pop up when you really talk about nuclear, but you have
Mm.
safeguards people going there all the time. And then
Mm.
she just mentioned to me, oh, so this is why safeguards have been going there most of the time. So kindly read a bit on them and then let's see how best we can
Mm.
help Malawi use its own resources for energy generation and for expansion of the kingdom and the expansion of the country and to help others. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, because actually Malawi, there is something I'm discussing with some 2 or 3 people in Malawi. I won't go into it now because, some of the things that are very useful for the new level of expression are actually there in Malawi, and people are already mining, and I am not sure Malawi government is actually involved. I don't want to go into issues that have to do with graphene and all those other things, but let's leave that alone. Let's go on to Sister Veronica. So, Sister Hannah, I think you need to talk with even your pastor, because it appears that he is doing a good job of helping the presidency, but it needs to go to the place of mobilizing the entire body as against just. But let's leave the rest till we're talking maybe one-on-one.
Thank you.
You want to make a comment? Go ahead.
Yes. I've heard you. I'm committed for further talk. I'm very committed for further talk. So I'm available, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Brother Seth, for that input. It was important. Let's go to Sister Veronica, please.
Shalom, good evening. Mine is a question of clarification because I came midway the discussions, so I might have missed important aspect of what we're trying to do, but I did understand that there's a energy project. So the question I wanted to ask, and this is for clarification, so if it's DRC, how power will be generated? Is it hydro? And I'm asking this because I'm working on a project with the city of Cape Town, but we are doing waste to energy. The off-taker is the city itself. We are now looking at the power purchase agreement, and we started engaging in Zambia on the solar with Huawei and other EPC. So I wanted to ask for this particular project, are we looking at coal or are we doing hydro? Do we have the technology? Are there coal in the countries that we are working with, or is renewable energy that we are talking about? And apologies, I really came in late. So I'm trying to just to update myself and get myself up to speed with the project that is being discussed. Last week I was talking to people from China. They were looking for coal, a certain grade of coal. Then I phoned 2 mine owners of coal, and they were full to capacity in terms of the orders for about 8 years. They have already sold their coal for the next 8 years. Exxaro the same, I'm told. So, and those are the challenges that we are looking at. So if I can just understand the project, apologies, and then I'll be able to understand where we are, because I'm not sure how Trump administration will assist. Currently, if you're looking for funding this side of the country from the developmental institutions, funding institutions, they were not funding coal, all the normal ones. They were looking at renewable energy. Hence, the city of Cape Town, we went renewable. But we've moved back to coal, but I'm not sure how the institutions that you are talking to, if they are open to such arrangement. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Or let Professor Deborah speak first before I say anything, but it's very good that you have spoken and given practical examples of what is happening. Just before he comes in, what's the current status with your coal power generating station in South Africa and the second nuclear power station that was supposed to be, the one that had been decommissioned under Zuma? Has it been recommissioned?
Okay. Yeah, no, they're on that one. They're doing just energy transition on the nuclear power that is in Mpumalanga. Sorry, that's the last time I heard about it. It has not been fully commissioned. In terms of coal power station, we are back on coal right now, and most of the coal mines have already selling. They are already selling to Eskom. So we will be on a journey of coal for a long time. I haven't heard on the nuclear one, but the last time I checked, they were moving it to. They were doing just what you call just, is it JTE, something like that, on that nuclear plant. So
Okay, let's hand over to Paul.
but we
Go
also
on, finish.
let me just give the lay of the land. So we do have solar farms that are now sending power into the grid, the Eskom grid. But solar, the capacity is low. And that's
It's not only low. You need to hear from Prof. Deborah. Like you said, that's why I was happy that you came in to say what you're saying, because yesterday was very clear that solar actually is one of the least productive of all of them.
Yes.
And the batteries only will last about 5 years. So they're not the most, effective, the most efficient sources. But, you finish, and then Prof. Deborah can come in before I make my comments generally.
Sure. And I do agree with your point. Then we've got wind power. Northern Cape area, we've got wind farms. I'm not sure how effective they are, but there were a lot of projects around wind farms. What else? We don't have hydro. We get hydro from Zambia. Zambia supply us with electricity as well. And we had challenges when they had drought. So those are the energy sources that we use currently. So the banks and DFIs, they only look at clean energy, renewable energy, and they had stopped funding anything that had to do with coal. So we don't know what is the position now, because people are starting to revert back to to coal.
Okay, let me allow Prof speak, and then when I come back, I'll ask you one or two questions concerning your insurance, public insurance company that has to do with all the, what do you call it, the pension schemes of South Africa, because they're about the richest on the continent and they're just sitting pretty on all the money. But anyway, that's how I said.
Thank you very much, Daddy. And it's interesting. Let me just give you a bit of. Well, I know you are South African. You work on energy projects, but I also sit in a place where I see almost all the energy situation in most African countries, because I manage most African countries where I am now. So Daddy mentioned the nuclear power plant that was supposed to be decommissioned. Luckily, the French came in to assist. So ESCOM has put the second power plant back online. South Africa has gone back to coal. So they are doing coal, they are doing nuclear, they are doing a bit of renewables. Unfortunately, South Africa has been captured by the renewable trend. Veronica mentioned a new project of nuclear, which is to procure 9,400 megawatts power plants. So technically, it's about 4 large power plants, 1,200 megawatts each, and then small, about 3 or 4 small modular reactors on one site. But immediately they start movement, then the renewable enclave come in with a lawsuit, and they slow down the process, they disrupt everything. And that's what they've been doing. Unfortunately for South Africa, their process is not like Ghana, that if you sue us, we can go ahead with the project till the suit is settled. Immediately they sue, they need to stop all processes and settle the suit. And that's what they've been doing to slow down the process in South Africa. Unfortunately, Sister Veronica was not here yesterday. For yesterday, what we are trying to do, we are trying to identify energy sources that can support Africa's development. The Inga Dam came in as an example. So we're looking at energy sources, how they are generated, how they are used, and all that. So let me give you this. Since you mentioned a solar project, and yesterday I said this, if you have a solar project, give it to households. Because industry or large industries won't take the solar, because the like a melting industry, like aluminum industry, you need dense energy to actually do the melting and do all that. Now, if you have 100 megawatt solar power plant, what you are actually getting out of that 100 megawatts is 2080 megawatts, maximum 30 or 32 megawatts out of it.
Yeah, we're
Because
looking at 25 for Cape Town. Sorry, I was just, and I'll explain the model. I'll explain the model.
It's good. It's just you are reaffirming some of the things that we know, because we've seen projects around the continent, we've seen projects in other continents, and we know the generation rate, we know the capacity factor, we know the availability factor of the projects. You spoke about wind, and you see, wind maximum, how much you can get. If I put 100 megawatt wind power plant out there, I'm going to get maximum 45% or 45 megawatts out. But if I put a coal power plant of 100 megawatts, I'm actually getting about 90 megawatts out of it. If I put a nuclear power plant, I'm actually getting about 95 megawatts. If I put 100 megawatt nuclear power plant, I'm getting about 95 megawatts out of it. So you see, there's a vast difference in terms of how these projects run and their efficiency or their capacity factor, their availability factor. So again, we need to look at it before we choose. It's not just about being, in quotes, clean. Coal itself, people are saying is dirty, or they call it dirty coal. But countries like Germany, that are supposed to, or the pioneers of this solar project or renewable project that has taken over the world, are building coal power plants. Yesterday I mentioned it.
True.
Yes, please. You want to say
No,
something?
I agree. I agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the COVID period, 2019, they commissioned 1,200 megawatt coal power plant. There were people who went on demonstration to stop the mining of the coal. They sent police to sack all of them from there. So again, these are things that we need to understand. Countries like US have coal power plants within their energy mix. You need to have a mix that works for you, a mix that's able to bring down the cost of electricity. That's what we are talking about. So we are not talking about a specific project, but we are talking about sitting down, doing planning, and say, no, it's not picking and choosing, no, but it's bringing everything together to make sure it makes sense to us. How does it make sense? The only way it makes sense is the person sitting at home will be able to pay a tariff that is good enough, and the company producing the electricity is also making its profit. Yesterday, we spoke about the project the hydro project in Ethiopia. They went to World Bank. World Bank said no because of the complaints from Sudan and Egypt. They did internal mobilization. I think that's why Daddy wants to know about the pension fund, because pension fund is what we call a patient fund, a fund that is not in a hurry to recoup all the money at a go. So it's a way to actually support projects, and Daddy, I'm sure Daddy will touch on it. So there are many ways of generating within country, and South Africa has very good industry. Let me give you one example before I close, because I think I'm talking too much. Finland, when you go to Finland, they have a project called the Mankala project. So it's their language. I don't know what it means, but certain industries came together. The paper industry used a lot of electricity, and you have other melting industry or heavy industries came together, about 4 of them, and said, we are going to contribute to build a nuclear power plant, 1,200 megawatts, and we will buy the power at this rate. It's our money. The rest, we are going to sell it to government. We are going to sell it to the grid. South Africa has big companies within South Africa. What stops South Africa is these industries come together. We are giving you the platform to build, let's say, a coal power plant or a nuclear power plant to serve you as a people and free the grid, let's say, for the people, because most of your plants are amortized already. They are paid off. What you are really doing, you are just collecting money for maintenance, paying the people, making sure you run the company profitably and all that. That's all you are doing now. So you are actually, for most of your plants, you are actually not paying the cost of money because it's fully amortized. So these are things that we need to avert our minds to, and thank God for people like you, because you are within the sector. You can cause that change. You can bring people's mind to that place where they can make a change, a positive change, and then make sure that it's effective within country and it can now cross other countries. And I even see you actually serving as the base for the Southern Africa. And you have very good grace, connected grace. And I see all these things because I've done some few works within that sector. Thank you very much, Daddy. Over to you, sir. I yield to you.
Thank you. Can I just
All
talk about the PIC because you have 27 has already
Before you go on, the PIC that I was asking you about, I want to know the current funding, what it is like, and how much of that is allowed to be used, because it appears that even in terms of helping other nations on the continent, there seem to be some provisions and all that.
Yes.
But the point here is within South Africa, what is allowed, what is not allowed. Because PIC is just one of the insurance companies. It's just that this one is owned by the government, and that is Public Investment Corporation, whatever you want to call it. So I want to hear from you. After that, you should also tell us what you know in the area of energy generation, energy endowment, and all that. And then final question, the third aspect. How many in the body are beginning to collaborate and coalesce to see to being true sons that are managing their father's estate in South Africa as it pertains to this sector? Because sorry to say, quite a number of the people are only thinking of their own little, silos, how to make their money, and then continue. Beyond that, what? Okay, I think I'm through. Let me listen to Veronica.
Thank you. I just want to do a disclaimer. You all know that I'm a technologist through and through, but a businesswoman who's involved in now moving into the energy sector. So it is just I look at those opportunities. Going back to the Public Investment Corporation, PIC, it receives funding from the pension fund, and it gets a mandate from the pension fund. Currently, the mandate is on ICT related project, infrastructure project, the towers, wireless technologies, data center being the biggest, building a lot of data centers in the country and in the continent. And I'll talk about Cedi as well, which is also fund for people like us, small businesses that wants to expand, because it's got a BEE, Black Economic Empowerment Fund in there, where they help you with equity. When you raise debt, all those things. There's a debt and equity. And as a Black person, where do we get equity? We are not trust fund people. Then they help us with equity. So it's ICT sector. Big water is a big thing. They've prioritized water because we are running out of water quality. So they're looking at water infrastructure is a big thing. They funded few energy renewable projects which are not moving. And in terms of the energy renewable project, we also have a National Energy Fund, NEF, that look at funding energy project. And for the past 5 years, it was mainly on renewable, which was a sad thing for the country. So there are those, if you have to bring a project that is energy related, they will also look at countries outside South Africa, because they've done a lot of funding on renewable energy. There's a project, I shared it on the Global Altar, that failed, where they generated power from the ocean. And Eskom then decided that they are not going to be the off-takers anymore. It was a Russian or some companies that was generating power from Atlantic Ocean, from Cape Town. So there's that project. I said ICT, water, energy, And there's property as well, big project on properties. So those are the mandates that PIC have
Okay.
looking
Sorry
at.
to interject, just in
Mhm.
the interest of time. I hope you get my point that Prof. Deborah said there is a capture.
Yes,
South
we know.
Africa has been captured. The energy sector has been captured
Mm,
because now, excuse my language, the nation has been deceived into
mm,
going after renewables only, mainly, as against the most effective one.
yeah,
ICT you're talking about, data center, are they not energy driven?
they are, and huge energy.
Water, is it not supposed to be energy driven?
It's a big one as well.
To tell me any of the things you have mentioned that are not supposed to be energy driven. So the backbone is being broken. You're saying this is the mandate. So don't go into this, don't go into that. And you're ready to give people who will go into wave energy generation, for example, because that's what you're talking about. And it's not the most efficient. I mean, like Prof. Deborah was saying, I am not in the sector, but by the mercy of God, I know a little bit to be able to supervise. So I am a bit informed on various things that are going on around the world because of the privilege of position to hear from different people, including some people in Sweden, etc., etc. So the thing here is that we have been deceived into believing that, oh yeah, they're going according to the mandate. So, this is all we're allowed to, be able to fund. So we'll fund only that. Meanwhile, what will really get us out of the deep end of the pit, we don't seem to be allowed to. That's what I'm talking about, my dear sister, that we should now begin to see, how do you get others mobilized to begin some advocacy, if that's the least you can do. But I'll let you finish and then we'll quickly try and finish this.
Let me quickly finish to answer your second question, so if you look at the value chain, you in energy, you've got the generation, you've got transmission, and you've got distribution. So generation was Eskom, which is our utility provider. And transmission is Eskom, and distribution is Eskom and municipalities, right? And some big companies like Sasol, they'll also do some generation of power and distribute for themselves, and you get a different license for that, independent power producers. So the past 5 years, then there was the need to give licenses to independent power producers. They've picked, I think, 10 at that time, and they got licenses. And they unbundled the whole Eskom, So now you've got a company that does generation, which is competing with independent power producers. So that's Eskom. They generate, but you've got lot of independent power producers. Then in the transmission, you still have Eskom still. So all those IPPs, then they put their energy on Eskom transmission line. Then the distribution, you either buy your electricity from Eskom or they sell it to the municipalities. And that's how we then get our electricity in the house. They needed to sell the asset Eskom. So the first thing to do to sell a state-owned entity was to unbundle it. And by introducing the IPPs, you compete with Eskom from power generation perspective, because at that time they had coal, the IPPs were talking renewable, then the generation part was not going to be profitable, then they were going to privatize it. That was the plan, right? The transmission, they ran it separately with the aim of privatizing that as well. and the distribution is done by different municipalities. So that's where the politics were. Then they needed to privatize ESCOM, and they needed to find a way to privatize that. There were the past 3 years since 2020, we had solar, everybody putting solar on their own. Now, ESCOM saying that if you want to put solar in your house, you have to register with them, So, which is a a big problem right now, but they will then make sure that we do that. So in terms of advocacy, there are a lot of groups like Black Business Council, a lot of groups that engage government from a advocacy perspective to say that this is the way that you should go. Position papers are presented to the ministries, to forums. Right now we're going to G20, BRICS. BRICS is the best structure to then advocate because we are more now aligned to BRICS. There are a lot of platforms the way one can then get their voice heard. But the left part of South Africa has been pushing coal, The other part, Ramaphosa and them, they've been pushing renewable energy because they have their businesses in the renewable energy space. Then I'll pause there in terms of the lay of the land in the energy sector and how you then advocate. Advocacy is very expensive as well. And I'm just talking from a business perspective and understand that you have to engage different industry stakeholders. You have to influence them. You have to pay them. You have to, do all those nice things to be able to get them on the table where there's a common understanding. I'll pause there.
All right, thank you very much. What do you think is the population of believers in South Africa?
According to statistics, South Africa, over 75% are believers, Christians in South Africa.
What is that in terms of numbers?
Who will do the calculations? We are 45 million.
So it's important for me, like I asked, that was the third question. How would you be able to mobilize in terms of coalition, so to coalesce, to collaborate, and all of that? It is important for you to think about that. You don't have to answer now. You need to pray into that and see who will be the key people, like, champions, community champions, etc., etc. Because as long as you continue just doing your little silo programs and projects, which is necessary for you to keep soul and spirit and body together, like people say, but as sons, you take nations into their destiny. I already talked about the aspect of the coal and the nuclear, that PIC should be allowed to begin to fund, but it doesn't seem to be the case for now. But let's leave that, because even standalone things, like basic things like 5 megawatts, 100 megawatts, and some of those that people are able to do, and it's just a few millions. Maybe Brother Seth can confirm that otherwise or not, because I happen to know somebody in Germany who owns half of the community, he and his brother, in Germany. And that's what he does right now for a living.
So what we also need to understand, and something that we have to pray about and deal with it in the spiritual realm, every company, even now as a business, a fast-growing business, we have to sign into the sustainable development goals. One, we have to agree into the ESG. So if I need to do business currently with Accenture, I need to show them my policies on all those ESG programs. And now I will be audited on following those ESG programs for me to continue delivering services for big companies. So they penalize us.
I think, sorry
You get
to
my point,
interject.
my pain.
I think, I hope, and I think you've gotten my point. You are just reaffirming the fact that it's been captured. Do you realize?
I agree with you 100% that we know.
And that's the
just
reason why now people who don't have a stake in your nation are dictating to you from outside the nation what must happen. And it's almost like we have accepted it as a given, and nobody is doing advocacy in that area. All we're thinking of is areas that have to do with, okay, stop, trying to keep us from eating what we should be eating, but not necessarily ensure you make room for us, like you've made room in your own countries, in your own regions, etc., etc. Because you've just talked about BRICS, for example. How much of the BRICS, economic, what you would normally call, windfalls, are coming to South Africa? It's more of China and Russia, and to an extent, India and Brazil, but China and Russia. South Africa, well, we give God praise. So that's what I'm talking about, because if you're going to think as a son, these are some of the things you need to begin to think about. I will not teach you what to think. I'll teach you how to think. So anytime you're confronted, presented with anything, you ask, why are we doing this? Why must we do that? How could we go about doing it better? What is the Lord saying should be done? For me, that will be the purpose of this whole exercise, because this particular fast is the fast of realignment for equity of expression, so that every portion of the expression that was assigned each nation and the individuals, including you and whatever concerns, you have room made for you like Rehovot, where now the Lord has made room for us and we would flourish in the land. It's important that we get that. Maybe if there are last thoughts that Brother Seth wants to share, he's welcome to, or any of the people. I see some of the people that could actually have made some inputs. John doesn't like me mentioning his name, but if any of them wants to, you are welcome to quickly last thoughts, and then we would go ahead and close for the night. I believe somebody got something out of all of this. Barbara, you want to say something? Okay, maybe it was by mistake she unmuted herself. All right, let's hear from the others quickly. At least Seth, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick one. Not on energy per se, because yesterday we had two questions, one coming from Mami, I think one coming from Lucille, about research. How do you go into this? I will give you something. I will just put a one pager together, how to do searches on Google to get the maximum output. So what I just gave you, I quickly picked it in 2 minutes and just put there in terms of the papers I just put there. I've not gone through the papers itself, but I know the source of the paper is very good. So if you want something on clean energy, you can, or for cooking, what you do is you just type on clean energy and you put an addition sign, a plus sign, and then you just add cooking to it. It will pull everything on cooking and on clean energy. So I'll put a one-pager together. I usually do it for researchers. I'll put a one-pager together and send it on this platform by tomorrow, how to do searches. Thank you very much, Daddy.
Okay, and either you or John or any of the people, if you can actually do a complete thing on structured searches, that might be useful, because that really, goes even behind firewalls to get some things. I don't want to go into too many details, that would then help you. You will not have access to the entire website, but whatever has to do with what you want, even when they have put all the blocks, it will still be able to go behind and get that information. So if we can get the structured, search aspect, that will be very useful. So I've seen Lucille, maybe, I don't know if Veronica was trying to put up her hand again. Let's.
Thank you, sir. A very quick one. Because yesterday he mentioned the nuclear program in Kenya, which has been paused, and maybe because safety concerns, I don't know. We heard about it, but I don't know. But also they said that they have a huge reserve of coal in the Kitui Kambaland. Will you advise them while they are trying to sort out the nuclear to start exploiting that coal, especially now that Trump has come and said, we want to get out of that nonsense, they want to exploit the coal. China has been doing for a long time, and so on. Will you advise them to start from there for the time being?
Well, Seth, that question was directed at you, so go ahead.
So I'll always say this. I learned this from Japan, and I think at a point in time, the then president of Ghana, President Kufuor, tried to establish it in Ghana, called the school feeding program. So what you grow in your area, that's what you eat. So if you don't grow rice in the area, you don't eat rice in school. So what you have within your environment, use that first. If you have coal, use it first, and then look for others that you may have to import the energy source. So again, that's the advice, or that's how best I can answer it. Use your resources that's available to you first before you think about any other thing. Thank you very much, Daddy.
Excellent. Well, Sister Veronica, did you want to make a comment on the issue of structured search, or what was it when you were raising your hand?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
Excellent. All right then. Any other person, because I want to draw the curtain here now. All right, I take it that there is no other person. Hope you got something out of tonight's meeting, this day's meeting, depending on where you are. Thank you for the privilege of your attention, your presence, your participation, your contribution one way or the other, and hopefully you're taking away whatever we have been able to pass across to go and change your nation for the equity of expression for that nation. Because as we pray, we must make sure that there is practice and things are changing to the glory of God. Father, we thank you for the body of Jesus that was given for us, the bread of heaven that is given for the life of the world. Let we, who are that one loaf, the body, become life givers wherever we go. And the blood of Jesus that was shed for us, that was meant to give life and bring even the author of eternal salvation himself back to life from the dead. Let there be resurrection. Lord, I want to register my thanks personally that South Africa has the 2 power stations back online, recommissioned, and a third one that is being worked on. We are grateful to you. We thank you for others too that will finally get there. Father, they talked about Zambia with about 23 or 20-something rivers, literally crisscrossing. And that's why they export hydro. But there are many, many more sources. Help them as part of our giving life. Help us to do whatever must be done, because even the hydro is not at the highest level. Help us to become people that are not thinking of just what we need to eat, but how to become better at being good stewards of the gifts of God, as people will have to give account for every endowment of yours, equity of expression for nations, that each nation will begin to take responsibility. Because you said equity of expression for nations, in nations, through nations, and by nations. Let that be the thing that will be the result of this period of fast. In the name of the bread of heaven and the one whose blood is bringing back to life everything that had died, Jesus the Christ, the Son of the living God. Amen. The body of Jesus broken for you. Take, eat. Blood of Jesus shed for you. Take, drink. Well, let me hand over to those who are giving announcements. Announcements, please.